Hi, I'm Emily Thompson from Life So Savory, and today I'm going to show you how to make some simple doll pajamas. You can make this doll pajamas by using the free pattern available on the website or any other doll clothes pattern that you may already own, and incorporate these tips that I'm going to show you into making those clothes. I'm not a huge fan of sewing tiny seams or cutting tiny pieces of fabric. And so today I'm going to share some tips with you to avoid those issues. So I've already printed out this pattern and traced the size of the doll pajama pants that I wanted to use. The pattern includes a couple different sizes depending on the size of your baby doll. So we're going to take this and we're going to scan it into the machine, and then we can save it into the machine so that we can cut out the fabric multiple times for each pant leg or different fabrics that you may want to use. So let's get this started scanning it in so we can begin our project. And while that's scanning, we're going to put the fabric on this special fabric mat so that we're ready for the next step, which is actually cutting the fabric. You want to make sure you have your fabric pressed nice and flat, and then you're going to put it directly onto the mat and smooth it flat. Now I've already cut out this pant leg with the fabric right side up, so I'm doing the second pant leg with the fabric right side down so that I end up with a right leg and a left leg and not two legs of the same side. Okay, we can see that our design is already into the machine. And now we're ready to cut it. So here's our design, and you can see the outline of the pant leg. So we'll switch to the mat with the fabric and load it into the machine. Once it's ready, we hit OK. We're going to select Cut, and then we're going to start. The blade will auto-sense the fabric depth and cut it exactly the way it needs to be cut. While that's cutting, I'm going to show you a couple other tips for making small doll clothes. So I've already started this shirt, and this is the knit shirt that goes with the flannel pants included for this baby doll pattern. I've got a raglan style shirt, so we have the shirt front, the shirt back, and the shirt sleeves already attached. Now a couple of tips that I like to do to avoid sewing in very small places is to attach the neckline while the shirt is still open. I like to call this putting the neckline on the flat. It's not really flat, it's more open, but that's usually what I call it. So I have the neckline already pinned along the front and back and sleeve, and I just sew it right like this to avoid having to sew it in a tiny circle. Another thing I like to do is hem the sleeves while they're open and flat, and then when I fold them together and sew that side seam, the sleeves are already hemmed, and I didn't have to sew in that tiny little circle. So those are just a couple of tips when you're making the shirt for sewing with the tiny spaces. And now it looks like our pants have finished cutting. So let's take a look at this fabric. So now we should be able to peel the other pant leg right off the mat. And now we have a right leg and a left leg. And we can head over to the serger, and I'll show you how easy it is to put these pants together. Okay, so we're going to begin by sewing the front and back seam, the curved seams that we put together. We have a right leg and a left leg with right sides together here for the fabric. And I like to use my serger to sew those together so that we have neat lines. You could use your regular sewing machine as well if you don't have a serger. We're going to sew the other one. I'm just using a very small seam allowance on these doll clothes, so around a 1/4 inch for sewing. And you can now see that we have these two sewn together. So before we finish the pants, I like to do a couple of things to avoid sewing tiny hems. So I'm going to finish the bottom of the pant leg with the serger, and then I'll use the sewing machine to fold over the hem. So I just use the serger to finish off those edges, give it a nice look, and prevent the flannel from fraying. We'll do the other one. You could also, if you wanted to, you could just leave the bottoms like this if you didn't want to fold over a hem, depending on what you're using these doll clothes for. So now we can sew the inseam of these pants, and then you'll see how they start to look like real pants, even though they're tiny. So I'm just going to match up the center seam and the leg, and then we'll sew the whole inseam in one straight seam. Go all the way around, again making sure that center seam is lined up. And now let's turn these right side out and take a look at our started little doll pants. To finish, we're going to serge around the top of the pants to prevent the flannel from fraying. Now we're going to use the sewing machine to create an elastic casing. Depending on the width of your elastic, I'm only using a 1/4 inch. Will depend upon the size of the casing that you need to create. Just going to fold that over as I go and sew a wide enough casing that I can slide my elastic through. Remember to leave a little bit of an opening so that you can actually get your elastic inside the casing. So once I get back around to almost where I started, we will end, and then we'll be able to slide our elastic into that casing. And there you go, quick and easy pajama pants.